Hello, welcome to Fiber Trek. My name is Sarah. Holy smokes, right? It's been a while. The ice went out on the pond last week, and felt like metaphorically that was kind of the same thing that I was going through. Um, just things were loosening up, and I was like, I really should put a podcast out. How are you? I hope you're well. You are most welcome here. Um, Hello, friend. Come up here. Come on, Ruby. It's my best friend in the whole world. Come here, Boo Boo. It's my dog, Ruby. Come on over this way. Sometimes she comes up. Come on, hop up. Can you see? I know, I'm one of those people. Hi, bub. You might notice I have a completely new setup. So I got a new computer. This is part of the reason I think I've resisted podcasting and technology, just because I was a little bit meh about managing, figuring out new editing, and that was the reason I got the computer. But yeah, I just really wanted to work on my knitting. I wanted to sit quietly. I wanted to be with my dog, and that was kind of the theme for the holidays, and then it just kind of stuck like the ice, and I really enjoyed my winter. So I am coming out of hibernation, and if you watched one of my episodes talk about the bear, and I feel that that's a really good, here's that word again, metaphor for me. So spring energy, and even Ruby, she's a border collie. She's just 2. Even the winter, we would like do our ski. We'd ski like 5 miles, hills, trekking, and then we'd come home and she was out, done, slept on the couch. But with the change in light, I think we've both been reinvigorated. So enough about that. I'm in the Northern Hemisphere, by the way. I'm in the state of Maine. I call the Northwoods my home, but I commute to Southern Maine to work, which I have to do today. So I feel a bit of pressure around that. But with the growing light, as I just mentioned, it's changed my schedule. My name is Sarah. Talk about knitting and spinning and wool. And I've been doing a lot of woolly adventures. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about things I've finished, because it's been like 5 months. So here's hoping she has finished objects. I'm going to talk about things I'm knitting on, and I'm going to talk about a couple woolly adventures and some acquisitions and discoveries. I'm going to talk about my Fur's Nest yarn that's coming out soon, and I thought I have some locks to show you, and I've got some combs, so I thought I would just do a brief little fun, hey, look, this is how I use my 2-pitch Viking combs today. Make it worth your while to stick through the blah blah here. And yeah, so let's just jump right in. So I finished Sigrun, which was by Knit Love Wool. You may have seen this on Instagram, which is Jennifer Steingass. I knit this in 3-ply Gotland, which is the charcoal Maine Gotland, and 3-ply Maine BFL. And these are naturally dyed by Sarah Lake of Upton Yarns. And wow, do I love working with a 3-ply. It's like, when I put this on, it feels like a weighted garment or a weighted blanket. So like my whole sensory system is just like, right? So it just grounded and comes in. I think I knit the size medium. I think I got gauge. This is not an I-cord bind off. This is just a rolled neck. So I just knit and then bound off. It's my favorite neckline. Not a big fan of crew neck, and I'm not a big fan of crew cuffs either. So you'll see that I did garter stitch here and here, and these fold over. And then I also did a garter stitch hem. I think somebody emailed me on Ravelry wanting to know how long. That's probably about 3.5 inches. The cuffs are probably 2. And I made the sleeves a little bit longer to accommodate the fact that they were going to fold. So I'm kind of hoping that the light's okay. My husband mounted solar panels on our shed roof, and the sun is hitting the corner of it and blinding me right now. But hopefully you can still see me because I can't see me. So that's a done deal, and it's been worn and is very warm. I'll talk a little bit more about Gotland a little bit later because I got to visit the island, and we'll talk a little bit about that sheep breed. I also finished the Hedge Witch shawl, and this is by Wolf and Fawn Knits. This I did out of a combination of Bybrook Farm, which was milled under the by Janny, a style of Starcroft yarn. So typically the yarns that are coming out of Starcroft are Nash Island yarns, and so there's another label which is called Woolwife, and the Woolwife is for yarns that just are interesting, place-based yarns that were turning into yarn, and this is the first one. So this is from Michelle By, a Bybrook Farm in Linneus, Maine. She raises Romneys. This is the pewter color. I think this color is sold out. And then I did the contrast in Nash. So you can see there's a really beautiful textured pattern, and it's a huge shawl. It's another kind of sensory, quieting type of garment. So that was part of the knit along I did with the Gentle Knitter, and we had lots of great participation on Instagram as well as in the Ravelry thread. I have prizes to draw for that. I know, can you believe that? It's so typical. Then I got to get to the post office. So even though you know you've won something, you got to wait for me to get to the post office. Although I'm super motivated to get there because I have other packages I need to mail. But there will be a next episode, and we'll draw for prizes then so I can get organized. I had a beautiful Nostipina donated. I think she's by Mizpa on Ravelry, and it's a beautiful wood-burned birch Nostipina, and I'll see if I can commandeer some pictures to show you that. So those were finished. Yahoo! As I say to Ruby, Yadalahuski. And now, what have I got going on? Well, my friends, the Fleece Wise gals, so that's Emily of Fibertown and Sarah of Yarns at Ian Hu and Corinne of the Woolly Thistle, they all have Marie Wallen Lovage sweaters, and they all look fantastic, and I've tried them all on, and they all fit beautifully. I mean, they all knit different sizes and different gauges, and I don't know, that sweater, you put it on, and it's like, I love this. This is great. It fits so perfect, and I feel so awesome in it. So I was like, I have to knit my own. So I am. And the four of us have just kind of banded together to sponsor a Wallen Along. So if you'd like to knit a Marie Wallen pattern, feel free to join in the fun. I think the hashtag is Wallen Along, or Wallen KAL. I'm kind of dropping the ball as an organized podcaster on this one, primarily because I've been so focused on knitting my Marie Wallen knit. But we're knitting through Rhinebeck, and there will be prizes, so you can attend to Instagram for that information, the podcasts, and the Ravelry groups of the other three. But let me show you what I've got going. So I'm knitting Lovage, and I'm reverse engineering this knit. It's typically knit from the bottom up, and I'm knitting it top down. Emily of Fibertown knit it top down, and then Corinne had to do all sorts of interesting, I wanted to call it renovations, fair enough, renovations to her her knit. So she ended up knitting it top down, and I was like, I can do that. I believe in it. And then I got really intimidated when I read the instructions, and Emily and Corinne and Sarah have been super helpful in kind of guiding me through this process. They've been eldering me. This is a term that I've been thinking about a lot with Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She has a number of lectures on Audible, which were part of her PhD work, I think before she wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves, but it might have been post. And one of the lectures, they're like 7-hour lectures, is The Elder. And so that's the last one in the series, and I've been listening to that. But anyway, so let's just see the knit, right? Shall we? So here it is. And I am pretty much twins with Corinne. I'm using almost the same exact colors that she is. This is Jameson and Smith from the Woolly Thistle. And I cast on, and Emily gave me some instruction, but I've been actually pretty proud of myself, and I've been doing the reverse engineering and figuring out numbers, and I calculated my gauge, which is too big for the size that I originally cast on, so I'm actually knitting the small, whatever that is. And but really what I did is I said, oh, I'm getting 6.5 stitches to the inch, and she has you cast on blankety blank. Well, that's going to give me a 40-inch bust. That's what I want. So I almost don't even pay attention to the sizing. I mostly try to calculate out what my finished measurement's going to be, and then I can kind of play within increasing and decreasing for bust and waist and hips. And yeah, so I'm kind of nearing a critical point. I'm going to finish this particular chart, and then I need to decide if I'm going to cast off for the underarms, and that feels intimidating to me, but I'll figure it out when I need to. I'm trying not to read too far ahead of the instruction. Well, in fact, you have to reverse everything. So I'm just knit the chart and then see where you're at, right? So anyway, I've got lots of wonderful mentors for this, and I'm really, really enjoying it. So much so I'm not putting it down. I like the color work. I will say the Sigrun had rows where there were 3 colors in the row, and I don't know what that's about, but all of a sudden it was like klutzy. I couldn't figure out what to do with my hands, and it took me a little bit longer than typical. But this, now that I'm back to just 2 colors in a row, I'm feeling a little bit more myself. So here's hoping that it all works out. But I'm fine ripping it out too. It's been such an enjoyable knit. So I've also been working on, by Matilda Cruz, the Unstoppable mitts. And these were gifted to me by Emily of Fibertown. And I'm using my friend Jennifer Geyer of Wild Lily Fibers. I'm using her, rats, Batman. What happened? Using her Begin yarn and Partner yarn. Just picking up stitches, sorry. And I had originally cast these on in solidarity for Corinne of the Woolly Thistle, her colorwork mitten knit along. And here they are. And again, I addicted to knitting these before I left on a couple trips, but I just didn't feel that I wanted to take this color work with me on the airplane or for knitting and socially. So anyway, so the base of these yarns are long wools like Lincoln and BFL bases combined with CVM. So it's got some nice cushiness to it, plushness to it, a tensile strength, and some beautiful luster too. So, but I'll get back to these. I can probably, once I get divided for the sleeves on that lovage, I may feel a little bit less compelled to move through it, just because I can get to that point where I'm like, okay, I understand what's happening. But right now I'm really curious. I've also been working on, the name of it eludes me. It's by Bee Mandarines, and it's a huge shawl, Skigor. She knitted in a beautiful white, and I'm knitting it in Nash Island Fog. So this is Nash Island wool from the coast of Maine, Wild Island fleeces, blended with 10% Angora. And the reason I'm knitting this is I needed something to knit while I was traveling, and this is like garter stitch and increasing, and then there's some patterning at the very base and finish of it, but it takes you a while to get there because you need 400 and some odd stitches. So that's where I'm at, and I pick it up, if I'm going out to dinner or, something mindless that I can just have something to work on. And I've also cast on for traveling a set of sleeves because I just couldn't help myself. So I'm knitting Tree Light by Jennifer Steingass. This was from Making Black and White. I picked up at Edinburgh Yarn Festival a sweater's worth of Tuath by US Wool. This is a blend of the 10 North Atlantic short-tailed breed sheep, which is like, if I had to pick 10 sheep, these would be it, right? Faroese and Icelandic and Soya and Bore. And my friend Louise had gone to the North Atlantic Sheep Conference I think it was in September, and I really felt like that was my type of gig. But September is a hard month for me to get away because it's when school starts. I'm a speech language pathologist. You're getting your schedule, your clients, and all that. And so I asked Louise if she'd pick up a skein for me because I felt like, it's going to disappear and I have to have one skein. And so she did. And then luckily at Edinburgh Yarn Fest, I went to this booth first and I bought a sweater's worth, and I'm really happy that I did. I'm a sweater gal, and this is a really special yarn. So these are the sleeves, and they are written in a garter stitch. It's like 4 inches worth of garter stitch, and I love it. Again, it's got that feel, like that compression feel. So I have a few more rows to do on that, but this was, again, travel knitting. Get some sleeves done, and when I'm ready to knit the sweater, I will. I don't have a picture of it with me handy, but it's on Ravelry as Tree Light, and so that's kind of what I'm working on. I think I'll do my stitching in a different category. I also wanted to throw myself in there. I felt a really strong call to action this winter regarding white privilege and racism, and so have been attending to that in conversation with friends and coworkers and family. And also educating myself, and I've gone down the route of some of the, I'm sure, resources that you've heard about. So you want to talk about race and white fragility, but I also, I just wanted to throw out there, if you are still engaged and looking for new information and perspectives, I really enjoyed the interview with Claudia Rankin on being, and she has a book called Citizen, and that led me also to Ruth King, which is Mindful Race. And these really fit in with my spirit work that I've been doing, and it felt really nice to pull all of that in instead of compartmentalizing content, and, thinking about perspective. And so both of those fit really well with Women Who Run with the Wolves and Dr. Clarissa Estes and her work, Women Who Run. Did I say Women Who Run with the Wolves already? And then the lectures, of course. So all of that's been percolating, and I've been really interested in thinking about thinking, kind of an amateur philosopher, and the concepts of moving knowledge to knowing, that kind of intuitive wisdom to use knowledge reactively in a mindful and conscientious perspective-taking way. So I picked up also by Daniel Kahneman, is it Fast, Slow Thinking? I have it written down here. But that's, he's a behavioral economist and psychologist, and so he wrote a book about perspective-taking and how we think, like the neural pathways and how we build belief. And so, he's also interviewed on Being. So I pulled him into the mix, and it's just kind of been unfolding in front of me. And as these things come up, I can pull that into my work. And also through that reflection, specifically for wool and knitting, but looking at land base and privilege, food systems and textiles, that's been really invigorating. And I found a number of interesting, dynamic Black, Indigenous, people of color out there, moving forward with community, place-based projects around food, and shepherding and conservation breeds. So so that concept of inclusivity has really been a boon to me. More opportunity to find more interesting sheep and projects. So I've been following a hashtag Black Farmers, and not only has it, broadened my view, as I said, but it's also really pushed me to get back into food system and food politics. That's where I got my start. Soulfire Farm is somebody that I follow, and I think they're very tied into the Round Barn, Stone Barns up in upstate New York. So anyway, all of that's kind of coming back to me, and it's been interesting to attend to that and try to pull it together thematically, and I've enjoyed it. It's been a really wonderful invitation. So I'm always going to be a work in progress. I don't think I'm ever going to be finished. Rats. Failure is inevitable, and we can just rip it out or not and keep going. Let's see. What else? We did works in progress. We did finished things. A work in progress, another one, is my yarn from Scotland. This is the Fur's Nest base. It's Highlander fleeces raised on Ferry, which is a small island off the coast of Edie, which is part of the Orkney archipelago. And here's a sample lock for you. You can see it has a real open crimp structure, wavy crimp structure, a nice, long, and lustrous. So the Highlander is primarily a meat breed, and it's a modern breed out of New Zealand. But I was really looking for an interesting way to collaborate with the Cockrum family, who have mentored me and been their family to me. And I really wanted to participate in creating a value to the wool product that they're producing. And so I brought home, 50 pounds of fleece, and as an experiment to see how that would come up as yarn. And the yarn is back. And I'm going to get my eyes on it, but it's going to be a 2-ply, and it should be somewhere between a fingering and a sport, I have a feeling. It's all white. I'm going to be dyeing. So we'll see what kind of colors we come up with. Janny is going to be helping me out with that, thank goodness. So that's really exciting, and I kind of hope to put some time into that one weekend in May. And we'll see. I've got to get my label designed. I'm getting help with that from my friend Sarah Lake and her husband Sam. Excuse me. And then I've got to figure out how many skeins and blah, blah, blah. But that is forthcoming, so stay tuned. I have some fleece here at home that I've been spinning. I've been preparing it using combs. This was, I think, going to qualify as a semi-worsted spun. It was carded, so when it goes into the spinning machine, it isn't all perfectly aligned, but it does go through a drafter, so it does try to line up the fibers a little bit prior to. But I've been combing it. So this is a set of Viking combs that I have. These are 2-pitch. The more pitches you have, 1 pitch, 2 pitch, the more pitches you have, the more opportunity you get to catch weak fibers and unwanted dirt and chaff. Combing is about aligning fibers, and when they go into the twists, they're all perfectly aligned. I've talked about this before. So worsted spun has high tensile strength and luster because everybody's lined up. So physically the fiber is able to capture light and refract it. It's not jumbled in the knitting. And because it's not jumbled in the knitting, it creates more strength in the yarn. And so I've been combing, and I've just been futzing around. It's not like true worsted if you're kind of into the technicalities. I've done that where I've taken and washed each lock and loaded it. I call this the blood end. I've talked about that before. It's the part that is sheared off the sheep and then the tip. But so I've just been playing around with it and spinning it just to see what I get. I mean, I'm not interested in producing a true worsted well, I am interested, but not at the initial outset of this experience. My friend Sarah Lake produces a worsted spun combed yarn for her Gansies. This, I believe, the Gotland and the BFL are worsted spun at Stonehenge Fiber Mill in Michigan. And so one of the things that you might realize about the more plies and worsted spun is the less pilling you have, so the more strength, because you have less fiber tips peeking out of the yarn. Anyway, so here my combs are loaded, and I'm just going to spray, and this is just a little bit of water and essential oil. And I usually have this clamped to a table and I stand up and I come in and grab and pull. And this is really just trying to drive out all the weak fiber that you don't want. See that little nep right there? Bing. We really don't want that in the spinning. So luckily for me, I produce ornaments of felt and I stuff them so I can use the waste from that to stuff. Combs come in all sorts of sizes and pitches, and I also have fine combs, which is a single pitch. I've talked about that when I spun for my conservation breed hap. So I probably am going to let that all go. And we'll go back and we can do it again. See what we get. I might, sometimes I futz around because I want to catch more fiber and just, you know, if you're loading it, just, you have to be really careful and have a tetanus shot. But you can start to see the result. So this is going to create top. That's what top is, combed top. And we're going to create a nest. I don't know why I'm so compelled to talk about combing today, but I really wanted to get back to my spinning. I have spun some of this, but I've had some other projects that I've been working on. I'll show you those in a minute for stitching. And I haven't been sewing, so I'm looking forward to summer to come back. So let's just say this is finished. It's probably good enough for me. I'm going to slide it up. I know Carrie of the Woolen Mitten podcast was also talking about combing as well too for her Corriedales. I always kind of take it off a little bit, and you can, I diz, which is a verb for pulling the top off through something, like through a hole. I usually diz right through my needle gauge. One thing about combing is whatever diameter you diz it at, you can spin it thinner, but you can't spin it thicker. So something to keep in mind if you're doing that. But and you can also spin right off the comb. So you can just draft with this hand, and you know. So let's just see what I'm not gonna diz. I'm just gonna gently pull. Try not to pierce my face. When it starts to get hard, that really is the time to let go of what's behind the pitches. It's really hard for me to do that though. So here's a bit of finished top, and I'm just gonna, it's also hard. I usually take my rings off because it will catch the top. But you can see how everybody's so happy and perfectly aligned, I think. I'm just going to take the end, and I wrap it around. And I take this end and I pull it through the top. This will be where I start spinning. And there's my little nest of Highlander fleece from Fur's Nest Farm in Orkney. So anyway, combing with Sarah. But that's what I've been spinning. I guess I can ground that in this conversation with, and what I'd like to get back to doing more of this summer. I didn't bring that much of this fleece home, just enough to play around with. I also have my drum carter, but I just couldn't resist those beautiful long locks. So here's my waist. And you can see that those are short, neppy fibers. Might be broken, might be weak. They're breaking. So all of that can just go into stuffing a pillow, or you can put it through your drum carter. You can felt with it. So that's what my spinning aspirations are, and some information about the Highlander fleece. The Highlander fleece is, the genetics are Romney, Thin, and Texel. So that was very Romney-esque, that nice long open crimp structure. And yeah, so hopefully I can get a little bit more spinning done. I've also been stitching, and I've been very inspired, as I said, by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who is kind of a Jungian, in the Jungian psychology camp. So storytelling, fairy tales, folk tales as kind of a guide for the conscious mind and subconscious human development. But I put together a couple ideas, but here's some stitching I've been doing. This is another felt belt. If you follow along, you know my husband went skiing in Greenland with the Arctic Circle race, and I stitched him a belt. This one is the first one for me. I have more pieces to put in here, but that's what I've whip stitched down. And then, where are my bears? I will say what I like about the computer is I can kind of move it around, and I'm sorry for you, but so I had 2 bears that I had finished, and I was going to show them to you. Oh well. So I have 2 bears, smaller versions, and I'm going to put those on here and then do some embroidery work. I picked up some new threads when I've been traveling, so I've really wanted to work with linen and silk. So here's a little sampler. This top one is I think a 2-ply linen. And then silk, a 5-ply wet spun linen. This was a beautiful 2-ply cotton I picked up in Sweden. And then this is top stitching thread, which is just 100% polyester. So I visited this shop called Svenska Handwork, Swedish Handwork, and I found some beautiful threads there and some kits I picked up for hand stitching. It was a really inspiring, beautiful shop. So if you're in Stockholm, I would definitely recommend that shop. It had wool centrum, it had a couple other wool lines, and it had beautiful wool fabric and kits and stitching, and it was really beautiful. So that's some of the handwork I've been doing, and I didn't think I was going to like this whip stitching experience, but it's very, I've gotten a good rhythm, and so it doesn't take me as long as I thought, and my stitches are even enough for my eye, and I'll have a better example of that. So I made these cuffs, and you can see the stitching there, but I was just fooling around with shapes and decorative work. So I thought these would just be fun. I found these in this book, which is Modern Folk Embroidery. It's a beautiful book full of wonderful design inspiration and projects, but I didn't find it to be a good book for explaining stitches. And she does have a stitch dictionary in there, but I wouldn't recommend this as like, I'm going to start embroidery and what should I do? So yeah, I've been using other resources to complement this one. So that's what I've been doing for hand stitching. So there's some finished pieces there and in progress pieces. So I've been traveling, right? I went to Edinburgh Yarn Festival. What did I find there? Well, I didn't think I was going to buy any yarn. But I told you I got the Tua. That was my plan. That's the one I wanted to get. And then I found, Corinne and I were wandering the market together, and I found this whistleberry yarn, Yevering Bell. This is a Wensleydale mohair. It's 80% mohair and 20% Wensleydale, which are very similar fibers in some ways. See the beautiful luster on that. So long wool, beautiful tensile strength. This is 380 yards, and I'm thinking I'd like to knit another Lulu in this, or some sort of similar kind of open garment. So lots of beautiful drape. I think Corinne got some, and she's going to knit a Lulu as well. I used my Shackleton yarn that I published, that I designed, I think it was last year, to do my first Lulu, and I got some Gotland last year to do another, but there's another sweater, and I can't remember the name of it, that I'm thinking that this would be perfect for. So I picked that up. I picked up from the lovely Fabiana at Rauwerk this merino yarn. So this is sourced and spun in Bavaria. It's 2-ply woolen spun, and she was wearing Winterberry from Emily Fogel's Knits About Winter, and I went up to her. I saw it from across the room, and I had loved that vest, but I really wasn't sure how I would work that into a wardrobe, or if, you know, but she had it on, and it was like a perfect overpiece for like a tunic, and so that sealed the deal for me. So I went over and I picked out this green, which is coming up very pine in this, but it's more emerald. And yeah, so you can find they consider themselves eco-friendly and ethical yarn. And yeah, so that was a really lovely little discovery that I made, and it was unexpected. I also picked up, I was hanging out with Elizabeth Dougherty, who's a designer, and she's got a lot of really versatile kind of just wardrobe staple pieces. One of them is a Gansey kind of inspired piece, which the name of it is eluding me, but it's been in my queue for a while, and she and I were talking about it, and I found this 3-ply, I know it's beautifully gray, this 3-ply Hebridean pulled Dorset. This is from TJ Frog. And I think I bought most of this clip for that sweater. So it's like I said, it's a beautiful 3-ply. So the Gansey-ish garment has a lot of texture to it, and cable-y, small cables. And I think that this will be a perfect complement to really popping that texture and having that traditional sea kind of feel. So I picked that up. And I think that was it for yarn. All sweaters, of course. The other piece, planned purchase, was from Adabrock Weaving. She weaves in the Outer Hebrides, and I've been following her on Instagram, and so I picked up her lichen color, and I picked up the same weave. Oh, they're the bears in Dune. It was lovely to talk to her. I also talked to Amy Britton, who is another craftsperson, and she coordinates and designs a line of tweed products, and you can find her on Instagram. So hello, Amy, and hello to Adbrock. And it was lovely to talk to you. And I'm sorry it took me so long to get this podcast out. Let me get my bears. So I love to get out to the Hebrides. I've never been to that island set because I'm always just going right to Orkney to stay with friends. But maybe next year, get out to the Hebrides and or Shetland, which would be wonderful to kind of get those islands under my belt. Here are my bears. So these are going to go on my belt. Belt was inspired by East of the Sun, West of the Moon, that fairy tale about the white bear who's a prince, and the young woman who needs to weave him a shirt. And so it's got lots of fiber arts overtones to it. The other pieces I got, so I went to Edinburgh, and then I went and visited my friends Sophia and Dennis and their family on Gotland, which is in the Baltic. We have the Camabornia podcast, and I took my husband Rob, and we had a really fabulous time. And I'm sure that they'll be publishing some of the footage we took from that, so you can get a little bit more of a visual experience. We visited Visby, which is a medieval city and town. And we visited Fora in the north of the island, and we went down to the farthest south. And I was reading Cerwydden, which is set in Gotland. It's set in England and Gotland during the Anglo-Saxon time, kind of right around 800 CE. And so up to, I think we're at 892 CE. But anyway, I got to visit some mills, and of course I picked up Gotland fleece and Gotland yarn. Gotland is a breed of sheep. It's a modern Swedish breed that's derived from the Gut. Got to see them as well. So I, of course, picked up the gray because Gotland create a variety of gray shades. I know. That's why I love these. Icelandic and Shetland and Gotland and Romneys and so this one's from Gotland Spinneri, and I also picked up yarn roving from the other mill, which name eludes me, on the island. They sell kits for Sophia's mitten Visby, the Visby mitts, and so so I did not bring that over, but that's okay. So I have plans to knit the new Jennifer Steingast pattern New Leaf. I saw that kind of come out for test knitters when I was over there, so I picked these up for the main color, and the yoke contrast will be in that silver gray. So what else? I feel like there was something else I was going to tell you about Gotland. Oh, Gotland sheep. So as I was saying, I'm going to grab my notes so I can make sure that it's correct. And of course they're not here. But like, I know what I can do. This was the whole point of this, which was to talk about the Fleece and Fiber source book. I feel like this is a must for everybody. There's a dictionary of terminology at the beginning of the book, which can be really helpful as you're buying yarn and encountering yarn festivals and becoming more invested and investing funds in kind of these place-based yarns. And you can also think about your project in a different way. But Gotland sheep, come from Gut, which I think, and Sophia can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Gut was the group of people who lived on Gotland, and so it moved from Gut to Gotland. Their fleeces resemble mohair. The samples that they used in this book, they received from England. Just a note, what we have here in the United States is upgraded fleeces or upgraded sheep, meaning that you buy semen and then you put it on a similar breed and you continue to do that. And so you can get 85%, 95.5%, moving towards bloodlines of 100% Gotland. Length, luster, well-developed, wavy crimp. Silky, soft, and lustrous are all words we can use to describe this particular wool. So the Gut is a conservation breed, and it almost disappeared in the middle of the 20th century, but conservation efforts have helped them survive. You know how I feel about conservation breeds. And yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to say about that. I don't want to be like lecturing on sheep breeds, but just to give you a little insight into what to expect from Gotland. And my plug for the Fleece and Fiber source book, Deb Robeson and Carol Acarius. It's a great starting place if you want to learn more about not just this is around the world, and it includes sheep, but also goats, llamas, vicunas, alpacas, yak, dog hair, cat. I don't think they do cats, but it is a resource, and you can really lean into that as you kind of build your awareness. So that's it. I think I'm done. I have to bid you a fond farewell, and then I have to figure out how to upload this, right? I know it's been a while, and I'm so glad you stuck with me this long, and I hope to see you next time. But in the meantime, wherever your fiber treks may take you, may you return home safe and with lots of soulful stash. I'll see you next time. Bye.